hadn't been on Top of the Pops for a long, long time, and I felt, oh, great, really tasty. So I thought, well, we get him into a radio studio as well. And following this track from their album, which is called The Gospel, according to the Men in Black, I'll be chatting to Hugh Cornwell and Jet Black.
I'm waiting every day. I've been watching from my chimney stack. I'm waiting every week. I've been hoping that they're coming back. I'm seeing all the signs, and I'm learning how to bring them back. And I'm waiting for the men in black.
That's the Stranglers. I'm waiting for the Men in Black, and I have a couple of the Men in Black here, Jet Black and Hugh Cornwell. Before I talk about the album, Hugh, can I ask you why you always seem to be as a band in trouble? I think it's only fair that you get the chance to have your say.
The thing is that when people write newspapers, they always pick things which are going to make good stories that they can sell their newspapers by. So they obviously go for things where they go for the more sensationalist stories where we're involved with trouble, and the times when we're not involved in trouble, they don't bother to write about. So they say, oh well, no one wants to hear about Stranglers, having a successful concert and no trouble happening or anything. They only want to hear about the times when something does happen.
Since you mentioned us having our say, Tommy, next week we're having our say about the big trouble of last year, which was, in Nice.
Right.
Next week we have we're publishing a book which I've written about that whole incident, and anybody who reads that will find a totally different story to what you heard in the newspapers. So we are having our say about the trouble. Anybody who wants to read the book, which is called Much Ado About Nothing, it's all there.
Okay, and the album comes out next week as well. So now let's talk about the album. Who are the Men in Black?
Well, all over the world for the last 20 or 30 years, people who experience strange phenomena and sightings of strange objects in the sky, things like this, they report them to certain journals and official sources, and then a lot of them get visited soon afterwards by strange men dressed in black. And all official organisations deny any knowledge of them. They say they're nothing to do with them, and these people are silenced in one form or another. They're either intimidated, or they're told that the photographs they've taken have got to be given to these blokes that come and see them, and they never report another thing again. And it just seemed like a very strange occurrence, and it started us thinking about all sorts of other strange occurrences, basically to do with religion and why we're here. But it's like a big jigsaw puzzle, and we're just fitting all the pieces together. And I'm sure that we'll probably get visited very soon by them, because they'll suddenly realise that we're onto them. Because we are, in fact, are not the Men in Black.
Yeah.
We're just reporting about them.
It's usually, well, I'd like to say here, it's usually the Men in Blue that come round and see
No more.
No more, right.
Only your commissioners downstairs.
Right. Here's a track called Just Like Nothing on Earth.
A woman in Wellington wet her whistle with a wild man from way back when. She stuck her thumb and she held her head. Told a man she didn't care. A nipper, that's a nod, and you know that near the Nissan window there's Mitsubishi. The kid was scared. He said he thought it was something new. Just like nothing on earth. 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 The man on the main motormile mesmerized much more than magic me engine piece of meal. You know UFOs utilize UFO pneumatics, static fantastic traumatic learning of a dog like a president got out of time range some sort of magic women. His brain was blazed and amazing that he thought it was something new. Just like nothing on earth. 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 It's just like nothing on earth.
That's from the Gospel According to the Men in Black. It's called Just Like Nothing on Earth. It's the latest album by the Stranglers, which is released this coming Monday. This concept, it says on the front, was put together by you, Hugh, in Nice in 1980, the very beginning of 1980, I think.
Well, that's a bit misleading because that only refers to the cover design, which when I had a few days at the pleasure of the French government in Nice, I had nothing to do, so I designed the idea for the cover. But the actual concept we've been thinking about for years. We first learnt about these Men in Black and their strange appearances about 3 years ago when we were working on the Black and White album. And we thought then in the future we would be, investigating that at some point, and it's taken us this long to get round to it.
How much energy do you put into it? How much time do you actually spend together?
It's our lives, that's what we do. We don't do anything else. We write music together, we tour and play music. We think of ideas, we write books, we publish a magazine every 2 months. It's been going for 3 years now, which goes out to all the kids who buy our records. And it's a total time-consuming occupation, and we love it.
How long did it take you then to put this album together? I think you've already indicated that you spread it over a long period of time.
Yeah, it was because we had a lot of other commitments last year, with various authorities, and we ended up doing it in small periods of time. Like we first started in January 1980. We did the Waiting for the Men in Black then, in the beginning of January, and we only just finished it like this in December of 1980. So it was just in a few days here, a few days there, all over Europe when we were playing in Europe. So we ended up. It took just about a year. One we did in JL's house. That turn, the Century's Turn, was done in Startling, which is Lennon's old house. Brilliant studio.
people see you as threatening people. Other people see you as very communicative people.
Well, the people who feel threatened by us are people that don't take the time out to try and understand us. And the people who find us very communicative are the people that take the trouble to try and understand us, and they find that we are communicative, and therefore they cease to be threatened.
What about, Jet, as far as the next concept? Have you got that one structured? You said you've been thinking about this one for about 3 years.
Well, we've got all the music pretty well sussed, haven't we?
Yeah.
The concept.
It's, well, we're very fascinated by this nefarious word called love, which, you know, we don't see much of it around these days, but we see people shining their cars on Sundays and giving undue amounts of affection to their pets and things like this. So there's obviously some sort of love about. So it's probably going to be an interesting investigation into this strange thing called love.
Broadly speaking, what sort of audience do you attract?
Well, strangely enough, an absurdly wide. We have little kids, and I've seen 65-year-olds in the audience. You know, plumbers, bakers, candlestick makers, barristers. A really strange cross-section of people, and they all turn up dressed in black.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I wonder why.
Oh, they're all part of spaceships outside as well.
Yeah. We've just been to the States for 2 months in October, November, and we went all over, played all sorts of places, and we found there, again, we were surprised because it was all sorts of people, cowboys, lumberjacks, you know, school kids, all sorts of people. We heard that in Russia, apparently in Moscow, all the young dissident intellectuals sit around in their flats at 3 o'clock in the morning putting on Stranglers records clandestinely, and that's about the closest we've heard some special group somewhere of people, you know, turning on to our music.
There's a tour coming up. Hugh, when's it starting?
Starting on Monday the 9th in Bristol, and it's going on for about 4 weeks, and it ends in London at the Rainbow.
7th of March.
Yeah.
Here's the single. It's called Thrown Away. Away, the single lifted from the album The Gospel According to the Men in Black, which is released this coming Monday. Relative to the books that the gentlemen were talking about there, you can get all their books through SIS, which is the Stranglers Information Service. The address, incidentally, is on the back for the Men in Black, but just in case you, say, can't afford the album and you're interested, write to me and I'll give you the address to communicate with, okay? So write to Tommy Vance, Rock On, BBC Radio 1, London W1A 4WW, and I'll give you all the details about SIS. And thanks a lot to Jet Black for sending me copies of Strangle. I've got them all in front of me here in the studio. And also I have a copy of Inside Information written by Hugh Cornwell that relates to his enforced holiday, if you like to put it that way, in Pentonville.